You know that I think there's 7 breaks. So you had to know that you had to get to a certain peak point and then go to a commercial break in order to get the audience to come back. I had been writing in Canada. I was practicing medicine there. Gave up my medical practice to come to the States, started writing episodic television here, and then had an opportunity to write Amityville Horror. The same year I wrote a comedy feature, Fast Break, so I had the 2 totally different movies in the same year. I was friendly with Jay Anson, who wrote the book, The Amityville Horror. He called me to tell me CBS was interested in doing the movie for television, and not having done that before, wondered, what kind of deal he should make. And we talked about that. And then what happened is that Sam Arkoff, AIP, I think it was, Pictures, decided they wanted to make it as a feature, went to CBS and said, look, we'll give you the first television showing of it. Let us do it as a feature. And CBS said, sure. So then they hired a writer to do the screenplay. They weren't happy with it. And then Jay said to them, why don't you get Sandor Stern? So they sent me the script. I looked at the script. I said, it's not scary. It's the big problem with it. And so they hired me and I wrote it. Steve White called me and said, look, I have a book that I'd like you to take a look at, see if you're interested in doing the teleplay. And he sent me the book by John Jones. And I read it and I said, I love the title. Why don't we just make the movie? He said, no, to get the title, I need to buy the book. No, I think it was both because I'd worked with Steve before, so he knew my directing, and also because of the Amityville Horror, so he figured, well, let's do it again. Steve ran NBC Movies for quite a long time, and I did a couple of movies for him when he was at NBC, and then when he went into his own production, started his own production company, that's when he called me, and I love Steve. He was great to work with. He really was. He was a really nice guy. Oh, I think I did everything, but to be honest with you, I can't remember what the book was. I think I ended up with a credit from the Writers Guild was television story and teleplay by, and I would not have gotten that unless I had done major changes to the book, because otherwise it would have been, teleplay by, from the book. They wouldn't have given me television story and teleplay. Originally was done for very little money, I think a $3 million budget at that time, so we were looking at probably less than $2 million for television, so that means less shooting days. There were a lot of differences in terms of where we were shooting, because now it was coming out to Los Angeles, but I had to open the movie because of the way it was written. I had to open it in Amityville, New York. So we had to find a house here in LA. My wife was a production designer, so she had to put a facade on the house to make it look like the Amityville house. Then we had to have a rainstorm, so you're not going to get in LA unless you're really, really lucky that day. So we had all of the rain gear out there. We had all of the rain equipment, pouring rain going on. So we had that to deal with. Then we had to find a house which was sitting on a bluff overlooking the ocean. Well, try to find that. So we ended up going out way north to Santa Clarita, and we found a house that looked terrific, and fortunately it was on a hill, so when we shot it from the front, you couldn't see anything beyond it because it was high up, right? This is the days before CGI, so all you could see was blue beyond it, So we shot the front of the house out there. We weren't allowed in the house, although we were allowed to have entrances and exits, but the woman who owned the house would not let us shoot in the house. So we had to find an interior somewhere else. But we also had to find the back of the house on the bluff. So we found a trailer park at the ocean, high up on a bluff, and built a flat back of the house up there, so it looked like the rear of the house. I mean, we were all over the place. We were in Pasadena for the interior. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was really, really tough shoot.
Hi, Grandma.
Did not have a hard time casting any of them. They liked the script, and Patty, you know, she was a trooper. She was so nice, and she was nice with everybody in the cast. She was a great actress. She really was.
Pretty bird? Pretty bird? Oh, come on, Fred. What's wrong with you tonight?
Jane Wyatt, terrific person. Very enjoyable. Had seen her in many movies, so I was really pleased that she was willing to do this role. And she was perfect for the role, you know, being the kind of straight-laced, rigid person that she was, you know, for this particular mother.
Satan has been known to trick even priests. Lord known he's done it to me more times than I care to admit.
Norman, I had seen Norman in many episodic television movies, and I just thought he's always been good in whatever he did, and so went after him and got him. So I was very fortunate.
Helen.
I was pretty much involved in the list with the casting director. We would sit down and just kind of spitball names, and you know, and then we'd agree on somebody, because the three actors you're talking about, they're not going to come in and read for you, so you have to know their background, and so when we fastened on them and they said yes, we were very happy. I can't remember whether I shot anything with blood gushing out or not. I honestly don't remember. By the way, that was my son who did that. The only reason I hired him was so that I could torture him. I was not allowed by broadcast standards to show any blood coming up. There was no way that was going to happen. And I cannot remember whether or not I did that. Now, they may have gone in after the fact and just got a sink and somebody's hand in it and did it. I don't know. The production designer was my wife, Candy. She hired one of my sons, Mark, to be on her staff. Jamie I'd worked with. He actually was in Pin, which I'd written and directed. He was in that movie. I hired him, and my son Sean was an assistant editor on the movie. So, yeah, it was a big Stern deal. The funniest story of all was when we were looking for the house to shoot. My wife found this house out in Santa Clarita. The location scout went in to talk to the elderly woman who owned the house, and the woman says, "No, I don't want anybody shooting on my property." Right? So my wife went in to talk to her, and the woman had rose bushes all around the front of her house, right, that she loved and cared for tenderly. And she said to Candy, you know, she said, a few years ago, I had a film crew out here, right, and they told me that they would make sure that no harm came to my roses. And they trampled my roses, right? And she said, and that producer on that movie, I would never want to see again, ever, right? Oh, who was the producer? Barry Bernardi. So I had to say, Barry, you cannot go to the house. Because if this woman said, because Candy said, I love roses, and I guarantee you I will make sure nobody touches your roses, which she did, right? But Barry was not allowed on the set when we shot it, because if the woman saw him, there would be hell to pay. The only rule that I dealt with was that the evil has power, right? So that power can manifest in any way. However, to take over the body of a human, it would go to the most vulnerable, right? It doesn't mean that it wouldn't have power over a human being like it did with the priest, right? And like it did with Peggy McKay when she cut her finger on it.
Oh, damn!
Right, and she got infected. With the priest, it was a force that knocked him against the wall and put him in the hospital. But the most important aspect of the evil is the power of the evil to do whatever. Start cars, have chairs fly across the room, whatever. It could do that, right? But transferring to a human, it went to the most vulnerable. This was an actual location that was dressed as an attic. It actually wasn't that difficult because it was primarily, to be honest, was in performance.
Leave us alone!
For Jane, all she had to do physically was pick up the lamp, right, and run with it. The actress could do all those things. The most difficult thing was for the little girl to be elevated, right? We had to wire her to pull her up. But other than that, she stabs her mother. I mean, you know, you just can cut around that stuff easily. That was not a big factor. I just thought, how can I get a sequel out of this? And so I thought, well, the cat disappeared. They're looking for the cat. So let's just get a shot of the cat at the beach hanging around the busted up lamp. And then in the last moment, the cat looks at camera and his eyes go orange. And you know the evil's in the cat, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so the next movie is going to be about some kids or whatever happen to be around the beach or the cat's in town. And somebody picks up oh, look, we found a cat. It brings a cat home. New movie. That's what I anticipated, but I guess it was never done.
Pepper!
Yeah, I was happy with it. I think it was successful for NBC. I think it did well in the ratings. The reviews were kind of mixed on it, I think. I can't recall. But then the reviews were mixed on the Amityville Horror.
Stay away, priest.
You know, as you point out, there have been a number of sequels that I wasn't even aware of. I mean, I thought this was the last sequel. I had no idea. I mean, I know that they remade the movie, right? Which was great. It was. I mean, you know, I didn't see it, but I read the screenplay. Sent me the screenplay. I thought it was an interesting fix on it. Totally different from what the original was. Did not do as well, apparently, at the box office. Was great for me. Because when the sequel came out, everybody ran to look at the original, right? So now they're buying and renting the original Amityville Horror, and I'm getting residuals like crazy. It was terrific, And then I called because I got a screen credit on the remake, and I called the Guild, and I said, "Is there any money involved?" And they said, "Unfortunately, no, because." You wrote the Amityville Horror 1 year before the rules changed, right? Where you as the original writer would have gotten residuals for having, written the original. There was no money coming for that, but I got residuals from the people who watched the original because they wanted to see it again.